After parents fought back and helped elect Virginia's new Republican governor, critical race theory took center stage in a debate between Bill Maher and a professor who claims parents don't know what CRT is. Watch this.
The point is that parents who were spooked by critical race theory, none of whom can define it, when you ask them what it is, they don't know. But what they do know is that black people are being centered, their history is being taken seriously. And if you say you're concerned about history in America, why is it that when it comes to black history, it becomes a bet?
But I find that a disingenuous argument because I don't think that is what people are objecting to. I don't think most people, now of course there are some places in this country where they will and some people who will, but they're not objecting to black history being taught. There are other things going on in the schools. Can we just, like separating children by race and describing them as either oppressed or oppressor? I mean, there are children coming home who feel traumatized by this. That's what parents are objecting to.
Boy, that was refreshing. Bill Maher has been on point lately, particularly as it comes to woke culture and now with CRT. Charlie, I want to go to you first. This professor, Dyson, here's what he said on MSNBC the night of the election when it looked like Glenn Youngkin was going on to win in Virginia. Quote, "There is a black mouth moving, but a white idea running on the runway of the tongue of a figure who justifies and legitimizes white supremacist practices." He is talking, Charlie, about Winsome Sears, who is only, you know, the first lieutenant governor of Virginia of a woman of color to hold that position. So how do you get to this point now where we allow people like this on television to give them a national platform? He says that on MSNBC, so then Bill Maher invites him on, and now he'll be on God knows what show next week spewing this division and hate. It's unbelievable the standards that some people have in this business at this point, at least some channels anyway.
Well, you're exactly right, Joe. It is, and that is the important question. How on earth did we get into a position where a guy like this is given a platform to spew his nonsense? And I have to take issue with one thing that Bill Maher said in response. He said, "I'm sure that this is happening somewhere," meaning I'm sure that somewhere in America people are trying to denigrate, in schools, people are trying to denigrate blacks or vanish blacks or not teach quote unquote black history. To me, it's all American history, but whatever. If these people want to segregate history too, then to use their terms, But I say to that, okay, Bill Maher, where does this happen? Please show us, because we would like to condemn it if this is happening somewhere. The truth of the matter is, this history, all history, is taught just about everywhere. I don't know of a place, anyone in America not taught about slavery in America. I've never heard of such a thing, and that's not the concern that parents have. They have no problem with that. In fact, these same parents would be horrified if history classes in public schools didn't teach about the good, the bad, and the ugly. The problem here is when you have people like this professor who choose to take the history and weaponize it in order to score political points based on race. We have a word for that. It's called racist, and we condemn it flatly, and honestly, you show me somebody who doesn't condemn using race and ginning up racial discord to score political points, and I'll show you a racist.
Excellent answer. Abby, I got to say, Steph Cutter, who was a pretty big deal in the Obama campaigns, right? And Charlie remembers her well. She was the chief strategist for those winning campaigns. She made a very good point and warned Democrats that you don't want to be known as the party that is anti-parent, because now they appear to be owning this. Terry McAuliffe kicked this off, and every time they side with teachers' unions or Randy Weingarten shows up to campaign for somebody, this is the perception now that Democrats are anti-parent, and this could play a huge role in 2022 and even 2024, education making a comeback.
Yeah, I know one thing, and it's do not mess with parents, ever. Just the last thing you do is mess with parents. But yeah, you're exactly right. This is exactly what happened in Virginia with Terry McAuliffe. He came out and said, hey, I'm paraphrasing here, but he's saying that parents shouldn't have a say in what's being taught in classrooms. And then you saw the people of Virginia elect Glenn Youngkin because they care about their children, and they do want, they're parents. they know what's best for their kid. And of course, not every parent is going to agree, but to some extent, the parents want what's best for everyone. So, yeah, I mean, I'll give Bill Maher a shout out for saying, kind of correcting this idea about critical race theory, where it's not that people don't want to have Black history taught in classrooms. It's just that they don't want their kids to have to label themselves as an oppressor versus someone who's oppressed. And by the way, that's a sentiment that's shared across a lot of different races as well.
And Alicia, as a journalist, you've obviously been anchoring for many years. I'll probably say since you were 16, so we'll call it, about 15 years or so. You've been behind that anchor desk, so
yes.
Congratulations on that. As far as education, as I just said to Abby, for many, many elections, you want to go back all the way to even Clinton or Bush or Obama or Trump, education almost was never talked about, despite the fact that we're 25th in the world right now in reading, writing, and math, right? And China's #1 and Ireland's 11, so we're all the way down to 25. So to that point, it must be, I don't want to say a pleasure, but refreshing that we're actually talking about an issue that many, many Americans watching at home say, yeah, this really matters to me, as opposed to all the sizzle that we're normally talking about.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And isn't that interesting that it's happening now, just as we were coming out of parents seeing what was happening in the classrooms from inside their own kitchens and living rooms, and they had a peek into what was happening, and they didn't like it. They spoke up, and some people tried to slap back, and then they voted.
Can I just say something really quickly on that, to your question? What's interesting to me is that I think education has always kind of been a Democrat issue, but where we're seeing this issue sort of split is we're seeing the one side of the teachers unions and the other side being the parents. So it's still education is at the forefront of everyone's mind, but it's kind of been separated into two separate issues and branches.
Yeah. And Abby, we're going to go from soccer moms to mama bears. You're going to hear a lot about mama bears next year as we go into the midterms.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.